Now, I'm not entirely sure whether my nagging email about the wait list has worked, but it looks like we've got almost pretty much full capacity here. So I want to welcome you to the 13-night vlog, which is being held here at Space 8. So there's a couple of bits and pieces which I just wanted to kind of go through before we hand over to Toby and the Space 8 team. But just to let you know what we're going to be going through tonight, Toby's going to be talking about...
it's actually those guys really, but yeah, content validation and battle validation and content management battle validation, something.
Game as a service.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. And then we've got, I finally, after lots and lots of nagging, been able to get the Rewind team and Sol to come and show us some of their work. Sol taught me 3D Studio Max all the way back in 2001, back at the University of Hertfordshire when I was an undergrad, and Sol was postgrad.
Wow. Cool. I'd like to think I taught you everything you know,
So we've got really two great talks tonight. Now we're going to whiz through, well, not whiz through, but we're going to have one talk after the other. Apart from a bit of a switch over to change laptops over, we're going to forego the break because the Rewind team have brought a couple of their examples VR work. So we're going to try and finish a little earlier so that there's time to do a little bit of networking before we go to a pub, which I didn't sort out.
Go to the Weatherspoons.
We're going to the Weatherspoons. So we're going to go through both talks quite quickly. As some of you may know, we did a survey about a month ago to make sure that what we're doing in LUG is good for everybody. And there's some results which have come back. I haven't quite gone through everything, but some bits and pieces I thought I would share. So 75% of the community are full-time game devs. So the other are made up of managers, lecturers like myself, and students. But it is predominantly full-time devs. In terms of what people are using, it's about half and half. So we've got half people using Unity Pro, half using the free version. So that was a little bit unexpected. I thought more people would be using the free version, but it seems that we all love Unity, and at least 50% of people are prepared to pay for it. In terms of when people want LUGs, so the majority of people, well, the highest day which people wanted to come for was a Thursday. But almost close was Wednesdays and Tuesdays and Mondays. No one wants to come on a Friday, and the weekends were kind of low. So what I will try and do in future is try and switch it possibly between Thursdays, Wednesdays and Tuesdays. There are some people who have commitments on Thursdays, and so I have had some feedback from people saying, can we mix it around a bit more? So that will happen in future. But other than that, I'm going to shut up so that we can go into the talks and then play with some nice VR stuff and have some more beer. Woo! So I'm going to hand over to Toby.
Cool. Thank you very much. So, welcome back to a lot of people, and welcome if it's your first time. Last time we talked about Samurai Siege and our kind of journey making that, especially around content management. The guys are going to continue that story today with Rival Kingdoms, a game we're getting pretty close to launching now. Watch this space. Almost there. But these are two of the main guys on the team, and they've been working really hard on it recently, so don't give them too much of a hard time if their slides are a little scrappy. But just to counter that, I threw a quick video together that just shows Rival Kingdoms off a little bit, so you get an idea of what we've been working on for the last, about 18 months. Hit the lights quickly. Yeah. Actually a little just watch it, it's for the recording. No, it's not. that's the game as it was a few weeks ago. I'm going to hand over to Lou.
Hello.
Seamless.
Hello.
And Bill.
Sorry. Oh wow.
Yeah, so in case you didn't get by the intro, we're going to be talking a little bit about rival kingdoms and the fact that it's a game as a service, which we mean, we'll explain that in a second. And Lou's going to show a quick demo of it as well.
Too techy. Okay. Oh wow. Google Chrome crash. Sorry guys, great start. What's going on? Yeah.
Second display port.
Is it the cable?
It's your laptop.
It worked perfectly yesterday.
It's your laptop.
Shall we just turn off?
It's a new camera.
What's going on?
Try down the display port.
Just watch the video again. On repeat for an hour.
What are you doing? Keep smashing once you plug in the keyboard.
Yeah. Did it work? Okay, I'll need to rerun this job. Where is it? Yeah.
Okay, so let's just see if this works. Yeah. So I don't know if any of you were here last time, but we were talking. Lou was talking about CMS, and we're going to continue this story now. Yes, CMS version 1.
That was for Sunrise Siege.
That was So this is for our kind of our live game at the moment, which is Samurai Siege. So yeah, let's just go straight into a demo of Rival Kingdoms.
Unfortunately, it also killed Unity, so I'm just launching it again. Okay, I'm logging into one of our live accounts. There we go. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. So it's I don't know if you know of Clash of Clans, Samurai Siege, this kind of genre of game. It's kind of a build and battle game. So you build up your base. You can edit your village, move stuff around. There's walls. There's all kinds of buildings and defenses. You can upgrade things, and then the other half of the game is battling, basically battling other people's bases. If you haven't played this kind of game, I don't know where you've been recently, but this is pretty popular on mobiles right now. But I should say, we are on Android and iOS right now, and probably for the foreseeable future, it's going to be the same.
So I'm gonna try and battle one.
Okay. So this is him battling someone on one of our live environments. So anything could happen.
Okay, this is gonna be tough.
So this is somebody else's base. All his troops are there on the left. He can select different troops that he has. There's no troop training in this game, in contrast to some of the other ones in this genre.
You get like Titans as well, which it's called Ancients, which special spells.
It used to be called
It
Titans.
used to be called. Partly useful there.
Okay.
Oh, no audio. Oh well, you
Oh.
can see it from my laptop.
So they deploy in squads as opposed to, so it's a bit more manageable than you might be used to in some of these other games where you have to deploy loads of troops separately. And there's also these dragons, which are big powerful troops. Should be quite exciting, the new addition.
And you can control them as well.
Yeah, you have direct control. So this is, we're not just showing off here. This is for context for what we're going to show you in a bit. So yeah, you earn mana, and you can deploy more spells, and these are the kind of things ways you interact with the battle. So he destroys the castle. That means he's won this match. So just 4 soul on there.
I like to point out when you're casting spells, it slows down as well, which I really like.
Yeah, using modifying the time. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna throw it.
So you want to show the kingdom briefly?
Okay.
So you also have an alliance and you also have an alliance, or kingdom rather, and these are where you join with other players, and it has kind of a physical location, which is quite nice. And there's lots of little sub parts to this kingdom you can also upgrade, and you have different roles. So there's as well as like the kind of usual. There's the king, and there's lords, these kind of captains or whatever you will. There's also sentinels, squires, raiders, and they all have different properties. They can do different things. So it's a bit more involved with the metagame. There's also leagues and things like this that you can join with your kingdom. So yeah, it's a little bit more hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, like if you were a lord, you get more gold from mines. If you're a sentinel, you get extra damage. Extra health on your defense, or you're stronger. So, but there are limited numbers, so only some people can have that. Just adding it.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's also things like leaderboards and all the kind of social things you might expect. So that's about it. That's like the high level view of Rival Kingdoms. So let's go back here. What do we have next? Oh yeah, these are the keywords we want to think about for this for the purpose of this presentation. This game is live. It's data driven. What do I mean? There's always players online. They're always interacting with each other. They're always battling. And it also means we want to have minimal downtime. We want to maintain that game as a service, have a good general service level agreement with our players. So this kind of means when we deploy new versions, we need to manage all the versions that are currently out there and make sure they still work. They're all working together properly, and phase out ones appropriately so it doesn't degrade people's service. So I mean, this is a game people have quite high expectations for. And we need to try and maintain that to maintain the kind of the good user experience. It's also highly data driven, so we follow the kind of cycle of you instrument as much as everything you need to. You analyze everything, so what people are doing in the game en masse kind of thing, and then you can respond. And we push content out and as fixes whatever we can. Just so you've got a vague idea, I'm not going to explain this. I lifted this slide from another presentation one of our data guys did, one of our analysts. But this just kind of goes to show you the amount of involvement we have with our technology with analytics. So we send a lot of stuff to Swerve, and there's a whole load of things that kind of process it. And at the end of the day, we try and learn whatever we can, and then we fold it back into the game. So we're just continuously improving. So a lot of the stuff in the game is highly configurable. We can change a lot of things, at a moment's notice. So it's a bit of a different thing. We'll talk briefly about protocol buffers, because I'm going to mention these a few times. So this is a technology that Google came up with, and it's basically just for serializing structured data in a kind of binary fashion. It's nice and optimal. You might have used JSON for serializing things, or what's it called? Unity kind of scriptable objects. It's along that line, except it's a bit different. What it's good for is forwards and backwards compatibility. So if you remove and add fields, it still stays small. It still should work. So that suits us when we want to maintain multiple versions going out into a live environment. And it supports multiple languages. So most of our servers are written in Scala, and obviously with Unity, it's all C# on the mono runtime. The problems with it, the things we have to work around with Protobuf are there's no support for kind of referencing, so you can duplicate objects all over the place, but you can't. So when we have our big config, we might say, oh, this building relates to this troop, and the troop is defined here. But so there's lots of cross-referencing we do around different things in the configuration. It doesn't really help us with that, so we have to manually do a lot of that stuff, or we have had to in the past. It also doesn't support dictionaries. We can work around that, but it's kind of a pain. And it doesn't support polymorphism, so you have to construct things in a very old-fashioned kind of C style, where structures inside structures and this kind of thing. But what it does give us, though, is we have one guy, this is Luke, in case you don't recognise him, writing the protobuf definition, and on the client and the server we get some generated code which allows them to talk to each other, which is pretty awesome. But then we have to, these are some of our avatars. You can see it on the website if you're interested. But they have to manually write wrappers, or this is the Siege. The Samurai Siege way we've been doing stuff. So there's lots of things where we cross-reference things like troops going to buildings and all the other config. There's loads of stuff in there. We have to write a lot of manual code. It kind of looks like this. So this is a really kind of simplified bit of our CMS code. You can see we've got get troop template, and we give it an ID, and then we have to go find it, and then you'll say if it's not found. And you can see it's kind of repetitive, and this is stuff we really just don't want to have to write over and over again. But it is a kind of a first world problem. Plus, it's easy to introduce bugs. If you're writing lots of repetitive code, that's not good. So, it's another problem with this, by the way, is, so if you remember from before, we were using Google Docs to edit a lot of this stuff. And this is all great, but until you get loads of people editing the same Google Doc. So then the designer gets a bit upset, and it's quite easy for things to go wrong. We pull down the wrong, slightly different version of the spreadsheet. Someone's changed something, and then everything just completely goes wrong. So we want to try and avoid that. So more code. I'm just going to pause on this for a second. So we wrote something to wrap up our protobuf so that we could do a bit more code generation of all this manual stuff. And it kind of ends up looking like this, which is that?
Yes, but there's another one big problem we have with Google Spreadsheet on the cloud is everybody uses the same shared sheet. So if a developer is developing something new, they will put some stuff, they will change stuff, then that code is not committed to everybody else yet because you're still working on it. But the sheet requires that everybody will take that new stuff out, which is not ready, and then people will have to stop working and why can't I pull anymore? And they will just be sitting commit this so I can work on it. So that's one of the big problems, really.
Yeah, it's kind of one big environment. When we want to make like a refactoring of the way the data is, we get this kind of problem. Yeah. So we made something which kind of tries to wrap up this problem, and I called it the super schema, and it looks a bit like protobuf. It looks like this. It generates protobuf for us. Protobuf definitions look like this, by the way. You haven't seen them. And this is actually generated code. So I showed you that the code before, which was not generated, we had to handwrite. It generates loads of this stuff for us. So you can see here it's got there's a link to a prefab, and all this generated stuff at the top, that property, will go and resolve that thing for us. And it's a hell of a lot of code we don't have to write, which is great. Let's demo briefly how we work with our CMS system now.
So when we said a lot of code, I actually counted today. It was 15,000 lines that's auto-generated. Okay, so I will try and go slow. It is a bit complicated. Why doesn't it go stuck?
Usually making you go slow.
No. Yeah. Okay, so this is our CMS. Oh. Okay. This is our CMS. Can you see on the right? So this is how the editor looks like. So we have game config, line config. I guess it doesn't matter that you can't see it for now. I'll launch the game and test it out.
Yeah. So this is kind of a custom editor, and this is all based off. So we define our data structures, and this is all entirely driven by that.
By the schema you have shown.
Yes. Yeah. So it's just going to show you an example of changing something. So.
So let's say a level designer is designing our new campaign level here.
So we have as well as like the PvP. There's obviously some PvE components to this game.
Yeah. So this is obviously on a desert level. For this example, I purposely made it so that the level is on a snow canvas. So designer will be like, oh, why is it on a snow canvas? Let's change it so that it's the right one. So we can find the campaign level that's defined in the config. So we can say, okay, campaign level, PvE. You can't see this, but trust me, it's there. And then we can say there is a campaign definition called PvE snow. So you can just change it to desert. And then you can just reload the game, as in reload the canvas, and it should be what it should look like canvas straight away. So the idea is we're data driving everything so that you can let artists and anybody do whatever they want.
So I mean, this is the kind of thing that Unity gives you anyway. You can obviously modify things as they're running, but I mean, what we've had to do is kind of integrate this with our entire stack of how we push new content out to players and this kind of thing, and this is why it's kind of special to us.
Alright, so as a game designer, for example, he would say, okay, I'll deploy these troops, and then he felt like, they're walking too slow, for example. So we can pause the game for now. We can go to the troop, and then we can say I think that's the archer level 7. So I can go and find the archer, crossbow level 7, and say currently their speed is 2. So I'm like, nah. Let's make it super fast. Wait. Okay, you can see it now, but you can see that you're running really fast, so it's kind of immediate. And then maybe he might say, actually archers should be really more powerful than this. So he might decide, okay, they're shooting arrows right now, so we can say, they have the ability here. It's a bit hard to see, but it's okay. You can go to ability, and they will say they have the range of, I don't know, where is it? Range of 5.25. So like, no, it's too underpowered. We'll make it bigger. So now they will, as soon as you spawn, they will start shooting straight away. They don't even need to walk anymore. So now the game designer is happy about it. Like, okay, sure, fine. And he might have left it there, and then an artist might come in and say, oh wait, they're shooting really far now, but the archers, the arrow doesn't look that good. So let's change it to a more obvious one or something. So he might come in and go to the projectile, which is here, and then he will find that, currently it's using a prefab called fire arrow. And he will probably change it to something like big bullet, I guess. So for that particular change, you need to load the game again. So I'll reload the game. Because it's changing all the assets, so you need to reload it. Okay, here. Now you start shooting loads of massive cannons. So that's one of the examples of letting artists and everybody else giving more power. So another thing we probably want to show is, I'll pause the game for now. Go to, why can't I see this? One sec. Oops. Sorry about that. Is from the UI artist perspective. So if you have a troop, they can design. They have these. One sec. They would have given us these designs. So okay, if it's this troop, it should look like this guy. Troop image, inspector. So you can see that. So this is also defined on the CMS. So if we go back to the CMS editor, go back to the troop, and you will see in the UI image. Where is it gone? Sorry, one sec.
It's empty.
Oh, it's the wrong troop this way. But anyway, so this is the wrong troop, so I won't show that. So you will be able to just drag the asset and put it in the CMS so that they can all just change it on the fly. So in this development, we've changed the image like 4 different times, but developers don't need to touch it. We have set it up for the artists and they just come in and change it. So the other thing we have also worked on is that the image can be really small in different places, and then it just scales. So artists can come in and assign that this is the face, and then whatever the sprite size is, it will just automatically scale for you.
Yeah. So because on mobile, we're really constrained by, we want to keep the file size as small as possible. So
So instead of uploading like 5 different image sizes, with like one image, but it auto scale for you. Okay.
Do you want to show the?
So this is another one. Yeah. So from the using this tool, the same thing from PM perspective, I guess. So we can also export this to a spreadsheet. You press this button up there called spreadsheet, and I've already opened it. So it will export it into a spreadsheet that you can just modify the things. A PM will say, oh, this price is too low, or the time it takes is too low, so they might increase it. They usually increase price; they never go down.
So yeah, in the editor you can edit lots of things kind of one at a time, in a very targeted way. It's also very useful still to be able to use spreadsheets. We don't want to dump the spreadsheet entirely because everybody loves spreadsheets.
So you can modify it here, and you can put it back in, so it will all work as well. What else is that?
I think this goes to source tree.
Oh yeah, that's it.
So behind all this, it's we do have it version controlled.
All right. I'm not doing the best job ever.
It's okay. Was it hiding behind somewhere?
I blame the fact that the monitor crashed. Yes, here.
Okay, so behind this, it's we store all the data in basically just JSON files. It turns out to be quite an easy thing to manage, and you can if you need to debug stuff, you need to show diffs, you can see this kind of stuff. Because, like I say, we have this live game, we have maybe multiple versions running. We need to be able to manage that. So we use basically JSON files, and we get control of them. I've kind of modified the JSON format slightly, so it looks a bit weird because there's loads of new lines, but that just makes it a bit easier to merge. So yeah, we took JSON effects and just patched it slightly.
Also, you can compare with different branches. So every release we branch it out, so you can say, oh, within this release and the previous release, these are the things that changed. Yeah. Also, the point I was making before is because they are all local, you can destroy the game, you can make that really super powerful, but it doesn't matter, nobody else got it. Only when you're happy, we push it all out. Yeah. So that's the difference.
So this is basically all the JSON and get is the central store for all our config, and this is kind of how we manage it. Okay, what's next? Oh yeah, so just generally this is what we've done with new CMS. We got some faster editing iterations because we don't have like this Google Docs. I mean, it was great, but you have big round trips and it's a bit of a pain to edit. We have this kind of centralized super scheme, so we can build more tools off the back of that. Like we built the Unity editor from that, and we generate lots and lots of extra code for it wherever we need it in. And we now have version control support for our content, which is a massive win for lots of reasons. Also just being able to see why stuff happened, as well as merging and branching and this kind of stuff. Okay, so this is a kitten break. That's the end of the CMS stuff. Yeah. Take a breath. So, anybody know what this is? Anybody recognize it? No?
Oh, is it like a cheat tool?
Yes. Yes, it's
That's
like
right.
a cheat tool.
You've done it before.
Yeah, so there's one dishonest person here. This is the kind of thing, so we're going to talk slightly about hackers. This is the because they kind of affect the experience for everybody in this kind of game, this kind of massively multiplayer game where there's lots of leaderboards, lots of social interaction, and there's kind of a big meta game. This is just an example of, this is the kind of tool, I just took this screenshot from the website. You can go, you have your mobile game running, you can go find a value, maybe watch it change a bit, find it again, and then you can find out the memory location of it and change it. It's not too hard to do. I think you might need, I'm not sure if you need a rooted device for this one or not. But anyway, so this brings us on to validation, or basically defending against hackers, this kind of behaviour. So the first thing we do about it is we audit check. So I don't know if many of you use databases like servers in your games or not, if they're mobile games. I think it's often people, you kind of see it as like a database. You just you have your game, you play it, and you store some data to the server so you can get it safely later. For us, it's a bit more than that. The server is also, it checks what you're doing and making sure you're playing the game, as well as marshalling all the communications between all the other players. So the basic things we'll do are, if you say I'm buying this building, we'll check that you've got enough, diamonds. If you're upgrading something, or if you're training troops, we can check that easily. The one thing that we can't do so easily is the battle validation, because the battle is such a kind of complicated engine in itself, and it sits really in Unity, and we modify it and rewrite it in Unity. So it's not that easy to implement on the server. So I mean, what can we do? The basic thing we can do is just kind of sanity check it. Check when the battle you send, did you have this troop? You know, can I raid this much, or does the battle take way too long? Were they, you know, cheating the amount of time they have? But it doesn't cover that much. So this is one approach. We can just go, okay, we'll just cover the basic stuff and that's it. But then you get this kind of behaviour where people are sending battles, because what happens is they'll play the battle, they have all their inputs, and they just send the server the results, because there's just too much data to send the entire thing. So yeah, this is approach number one, which isn't that great because you get that kind of experience. So another kind of idea is we crowdsource it effectively. So there's lots of people playing our game. Hey, why don't we just get all them to check the battles against each other? But I don't know. Without asking, it's really not cool to just take over people's devices and use it to mine bitcoins. I mean, whatever you might be happening to do. So we kind of we do check the replays they happen to watch. If they watch a replay of the battle, so when you get attacked, you've got the chance to see what they did, so you know what happened. And this is why this person sent in this video for us. But you know, by that time, it's a long time might have passed. They might have taken all the gold without properly earning it. So it's not quite good enough. It's kind of what Siege does at the moment, but there are a few other measures, and there's kind of scoring mechanisms and things, so we kind of know where the hackers are coming from, and there are defenses against that. But yeah, we can do better than this. So what's the options? We could take the battle engine and rewrite it in Scala, which is what our servers are written in. No, it's just too much stuff to maintain. We don't want to do that. So what else can we do? I mean, if the client C# version, which is in Unity, is the ultimate implementation of the game engine, and that's what it is, then let's just write the server in C#. And some people would absolutely love that. But there are a lot of reasons why we won't do that. Sorry, this is one of our server devs. Nicely, he's
right there.
same shit.
So anyway. But we're not going to do this for multiple. What's the next one? Oh yeah, sorry. We're not going to do this for lots of reasons. Just looking around a bit more. Yeah, all our servers are written on the JVM. There's a lot of institutional knowledge about it here. There's a lot of knowledge out there on how to run them and keep them running sanely. It's not a minor thing to just rewrite everything. So we're sticking with JVM. So this slide comes from Lou, made it last time. This is basically kind of our overarching architecture of our game. So we have kind of our game engine, and we have commands that notify the server. There's the game config CMS, which is largely in this diagram, it's about the same. And the stuff that actually touches the Unity engine is kind of partitioned into its own little space. So we've got this thing, which is its own thing, written in C#. So we thought, hey, let's use that. So we started making a separate service that just validates battles written in C#. And it runs on its own on a server, and that's great. And then we can slot it into our architecture in this kind of way. So we have got loads of clients. This is massively simplified, of course. They all send their battles to the game service, and then the service can talk to this validator service and get an answer back really quickly, in theory. But there were some problems with this. We have got this working for rival kingdoms now, which is as it's going into global launch, we will have this kind of lockdown on our battles, so we know who's hacking and who's not when they do it, so we can act on it straight away. But the kind of things we've had to think about as we've been going along is how to make it economical, because we can either run hundreds of servers and have them all do one each at a time. I mean, validating a battle takes about half a second because you can do it really fast, but still that's not really a sustainable way. So we had to make it. Well, it ended up we were making it threadable, because that was the most economical way of making this work, which means running more than one battle per instance. I'm just going to throw this in here. This is quite a techie thing as well. in doing this, I found this useful thing called thread static, which means, so generally we try and avoid statics. I don't know if you know why in your code base, because there's lots of reasons. But certainly if you want to take your game engine and make it multi-threaded, that's good. If you, yeah, maybe this isn't so important. Other problem, load testing, making it fast. So our game engine actually benefited quite a lot from this, because we were running loads and loads of battles against it, and then we were like, oh, let's instrument this so that we can see everything that's going on, see where all the time's being spent. It actually made us a lot better. Other problems are, well, okay, so this is the main problem, making it reliable. Determinism. Right, what do I mean, determinism? So a deterministic system is, should be our battle engine. Given a set of inputs, basically the initial state and what the player does, the output should always be the same. And is it? So destruction, resource invaders, this is the output. Is it? It generally was, but we've had to make lots of changes to try and narrow down all the places where it wasn't. So basically, one of your biggest enemies when you're trying to make something perfectly replayable is you can't use just some kind of bog standard random. You need to know exactly that your random numbers are going to be generated exactly the same each way. Oh, hello. Sorry, this is a symptom of loss of. Oh yeah, we were going to show. Right, so yeah, in order to fix some of these deterministic problems, we put a lot of logging, which I think is kind of interesting. So Lou's going to show it.
Yeah. Okay. So every time you fight, one sec.
So every time you've been fighting a battle, we generate like a really terse log of what's happened in that battle. So these are like abbreviations for, this is like your state at the beginning, or just a hash of it.
Yeah.
And these are where you've deployed troops, and these are where you've.
So yeah, the DT means troop deployed troop, and then G26 mean we're stealing gold, and blah blah blah. BD mean building destroyed. Anyway, so it's basically logging as it happens on every frame. And then we're also logging stuff like, oh, your app is being paused and resumed. So just so we know that, we have done a few iterations to try and figure out where it goes out of sync. So we start logging more and more, and that's how we know that, oh.
So this to us, Lou looks at this now, and
he
doesn't see numbers. He sees a battle.
I see. Yeah. So I can see that, oh, we found a few things like, oh, if you start dragging, we were generating random numbers that throws everything out straight away. So we start logging and logging. So the more we log, the more we know. It's not a lot of log, and it's all short because we don't want to send loads of text to the server side.
Yeah.
So for this example, we see that he deployed a spell here, and then, so he left the app and then come back a few times, as I mentioned before, and then he deploys some spells, and then we'll see that it ran out of sync with the other side. So this left side is what's happening on the. Oh.
So this is what the client sends us on the left, and then this is a log of what from our battle validation service, what happened on the right.
On the right. Yeah. So you can see that it went out of sync at some point here. So we'll see here. If you zoom in here a bit, you'll see that when the guy used the spell, it failed because he only had 14 mana. Whereas he pretended that he had more mana than that.
So it looks like he was pausing the app, finding when his mana changed, and finding that memory location, and then saying, oh, I've got like 3,000 mana. But
so he started using a lot of it. So from then on, it go out of sync completely because the battle is almost like a butterfly effect where it's off completely.
We should say though, there are loads and loads and loads and loads of battles, of course, and we've only caught this once, I think.
One player, yeah.
Yeah, one player. We've only caught one player who's hacking our game so far, but it's not in full release. It's just a couple of territories at the moment, so we expect this was going to go up.
Yeah.
Right, let's go forwards. Maybe I won't talk about that right now.
Oh,
that's
just
sorry, it slides a bit out of order.
Okay, so this is the amount of error. Whenever it fails, we're logging into a log stash. So this is in the last 16 days. So this is the amount. Of, the peak was 15 battles in one of the hours. So compared to that, this is the other log, how many battles we have done over the last 15 days, and it is about over 8,000 battles. So over 8,000 battles in every hour, it's about 15 battles. So it's almost 99.9% accurate, I guess.
Yeah, so we're almost there. We've still got a couple of problems to work out with this determinism, and one of these is due to the last point here, which is the mono implementation, because we're running on just kind of a bog standard mono on the server, and the clients have their own special Unity, changed version, which has got all Unity's little optimizations in. So there's a few things left to iron out, but generally we get this kind of success with it. So this forms the basis of a really good kind of strategy on defeating the hackers. Oh god, yeah, that's it basically. This leads to profit. These are some of our so, in summary, it's a live game. We want to have rapid response. We want the game to stay up as much as possible. We still want power to everyone. Power was the theme of the last
Power
talk.
to the dev.
Power to the devs, but it's power to everyone this time. And we have protect the validation. So, there.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, let's go back that way. Start well. So yeah, my name's Sol Rogers. I founded Rewind about 4 or 5 years ago to do visual effects animation type work. And over the last 2 years, we've got really heavily into virtual reality and now very much looking at augmented reality. And Unity is kind of at our core of everything we do. We use it as our digital sketchpad more than anything else. Sometimes it gets used throughout the entire project, through to delivery, and sometimes it's just used at the very start to kind of flesh things out. Our two main packages are Unity and UE4. It depends how much interactivity and how easily we want to deploy it everywhere, or whether it's just one thing you sit there and experience. But we approach pretty much everything we do, whether it's for an iPad or for a giant 5-screen Connect2-driven interactive football kicking thing, or whatever it may be. It's still the same. So there's an input, there's a screen you view, and there's an output. That's pretty much it. So we've got really into experiential, out of home and installations and you name it. So what I thought I'd do today was just show you a little bit about a few projects that we've done in Unity and UE4, and then talk to you a little bit about what virtual reality is and why it's going to be so big for people like yourselves, and then where augmented reality is going to basically take over everything else after that, and everyone's going to start wanting to create that sort of content. Ask questions anytime. I was a lecturer once upon a time, so I do remember kind of how this works. And we have brought a few demo kits along later. One of my colleagues, very daringly in a meeting with a very boring corporate client, has said, talking about virtual reality and trying it is the same as when you talk about sex. It's not the same as having it, though, is it? And I was like, well, I kind of get what you mean, but maybe not to the corporate people. So anyway. Hardware and software agnostic. We really, really mean it. I only have 25, 30 guys. And so we don't have a huge pipeline set up, and it's all project-based. 6 weeks is a good amount of time to create anything for us. So whatever the best tool is, and however quickly we can get it out, and for the best result, usually we run out of time. That's the line in the sand. It has to be on TV or it has to be in an installation. So we work all the way until we get to that point. And it can always be better. You can always put more detail into it. You can always put more code into it. You can always put more time into it. It's an artistic medium. But as I said a minute ago, Unity is the core of what we sketch in, we think in it. It's a development platform, and sadly, my devs say that I think in Sol++. I can't code myself, but I can think logically how all these things should connect it together. And luckily, they can write the things that actually do the Twitter API that talks to a vending machine that then gives you a free ice cream on Tuesday afternoons if you happen to be going past with your iBeacon connected phone. And that's actually a project that we did for ITV, which was ridiculous, but still works. So, a couple of things. We helped launch the PlayStation 4, which was good fun. Lots of pretty graphics, big motion graphics things, interactive development, working how boring their brochures were and trying to make them approachable to everybody. And the other bottom corner, this is an installation. This is all running off Unity. It's an augmented reality champagne spray experience. So you don't have to waste champagne, but it looks like the bottles are spraying everywhere. Connect2 driven, and you recognise where the Jeroboam is, connects where your hands is, and then puts spray everywhere, bounces off you. But it also records the screen, does a edit of it, compresses it, uploads it onto YouTube, and then sends the people a link so they can download it. And the brand ambassadors get given iPad, which is then talking to that whole database-driven thing. So it's all a core off the, as I said, off Unity at the very centre of it. We helped launch the Xbox at the same time as the PlayStation, which felt like working with divorced parents. You know, neither one wanted to ask where you'd been all day or whether you had lunch with the other people already. Oh no, I've already eaten. In fact, who did you see? Oh no, just my friends in the park. You know. But this was a huge projection mapping project onto Berlin in their Berlin headquarters. This was more kind of trade side, so I think we're okay-ish. And then on the other silly things, we've done a fully drivable deck chair that was done for Holiday Autos. They asked me if I could make it like a mobility scooter version, and I said no, but I could get like an old VW Beetle and we could design it and put tech that always span the umbrella to keep you in shade and all this sort of other crazy stuff. And they said, yeah, all right, make that. So we did, and drove it around Brighton Beach for a bit. Sadly, they wouldn't let me keep it at the end. IKEA PR stunt. It's a magic mirror. So Connect 2 at the top, Unity backend, recognises when there's a skeleton there, works out where the human figure is, then analyses your top to go average colour blue, average colour well, blue and beige or whatever it is, and then says, oh, what a lovely blue top you have on. Very, very simple, but really did very well out of it. We did have a thing trying to recognise beards. Didn't do that well on the day, so we turned it off. It was definitely recognising ladies having beards. So we thought we better fix that. But they loved it. Then IKEA Spain asked if we could make 20 of them, put them in every store, and I'm like, no, this was a PR stunt. This is only one of these. We don't want to make any more. Silly motion visual effects work for the light in the museum. We made all the lines disappear as a stunt. Giant Forza billboard. This was again Unity at its core, Connect driven again. We were quite into it for out of home. 2 Connects, 2 systems running side by side. You had a gear stick, you could jump between the gears, see if you could do a drag race against someone else. But what we also did is a very clever failover system which spoke to an intelligent HDMI switcher. So that if one of them ever blue screen to death, God I hope that doesn't touch wood. That's the worst thing you see on a piece of digi-signage is it falling over going back. But it would automatically switch to the other HDMI no matter what. We also put some clever analytics off it because if we had skeleton analysis we could see whether people were slowing down, whether they were looking at the screen, and we gave some really good analytics off the back of it. But it was all, you know, you have all that data in front of you, now the client has the ability to ask you about it. And then huge visual effects work, taking big Revit files, making it look like a building was there so they can sell them early. And this was one of my more silly ones. This, again, IKEA, they always think of stupid things. We installed 20 different Connects around journalists' homes and tracked the skeletons throughout the day. Again, Unity was pulling in the data and then logging it where the skeletons were, so we could say how the home was used, where people were in it, and then we could say, you know, IKEA can design your house better. Admittedly, I could have told you that no one played the piano, and only people sat on the sofa, watched TV, and hardly anyone did any washing up. But for them, they could write a big report about it and the rest of it. They then asked us off the back of it if we'd do it for a company that specialises in bathrooms. So we installed Connects in people's bathrooms, which was a very weird project, especially we had to go all over Europe as well. We kept showing them, you only see skeletons, it's going to be okay, and then we made sure that actually the company used their own employees so they could sign their lives away or whatever else it may be. But really, really varied work all over the place. None of that stuff's VR. But over the last 12 months, we've done a huge amount of VR work. So I just wanted to show you a little 60-seconder of the type of thing. Then I'll delve into a bit of how you make each of the sides of it. From True VR, which is True VR, which is CGI, and Immersive Video, which is Video VR, which isn't quite the same. But we still use Unity as a spherical renderer to look at our video VR as well. Maybe. a bold statement. And in fact, have you ever heard of a company called Chaotic Moon over in the States? They're a very, very brash American company, and their tagline is, "We are the best." I love it, it's just so brash. We are more intelligent than you, we are more creative than you, and we will make you money. Those are 3 statements, and I was like, I can't quite do that in English, but I can say we're VR. That might work. So, you can fly with the Rebel Air Race, fully CG. We brought that with you. So you're sitting in a plane, flying 200 mile an hour, 50 foot off the ground. You can sit in a new Lexus car and configure it and drive it in a virtualized environment. You can be a fashion model for the day. This is a video version. We had a fun afternoon with a whole fashion show and about 100 extras, which was a lot of fun. Burning Man music video, crazy, didn't make much sense experience. But the brief was make something cool and then make a bus with 10 VR headsets in it that can drive around. Well, I can do that, and I definitely can do that, so that'll be fun. It's actually one of my favourite experiences to show you guys. Qatar 2022, it's still on, right? Anyone? I'm not that into sport, but they seem to really like it. You get to float down on a parachute and then take penalty kicks. Qatar versus Brazil, obviously, because that's how the final goes in their version of 2022. But it was a Kinect-driven Unity environment. We took a Revit model, repurposed it, and put a very simple game mechanic where you can look away the goalie and then take shots. We actually made it so it was only just basically a trigger in the end, because people were really trying to kick it way too hard. We also had a problem, I'll talk a bit more about it later, but we had a problem that when we got on site, we forgot that most of the people in Qatar wear robes, and Kinect can't see legs if they're wearing a robe. Okay, well, we'll find another way of triggering it. Where we are now. You can drive up Goodwood Festival of Speed in your new BMW. You can explore London. This is a 3D scan of a property we're working with, and that lets you walk around an environment through LiDAR scans or Kinect scans. And then my favourite thing, a couple of weeks ago, we did Bjork's new music video, which was launched on iOS initially as an installation in New York and Rough Trade, but that was actually fully Unity as well. So we used some fast video decoding, some spheres, and made it work on an iPhone 6 far better than we could out of just direct and Xcode in Metal. So Unity's kind of kicking ass all over the place, really. So recently, done some silly things, got dressed up, they put me in a magazine, marketing magazine. Loaded asked me to write an article on the future of sex, and especially in VR and AR, there's a lot of people going to make a lot of money in it. I said I can have an opinion, but we're not working in that sector at all, ever, because we'll never work with any of our other clients again. But some people are going to be very, very, very rich. Oh, the term, if you're looking it up, is teledildonics. Maybe don't Google it here. I'm not sure what your firewalls are like. We also looked at VR for empathy. So VR is so powerful and so visceral that actually people can use it for helping people to understand the things they may not. So we can take a video and we can transpose you from here to an Ebola camp and let you understand how awful it is over there. Or we can make a wheelchair simulator. So sit in a wheelchair, spin the wheels. Can you get from this side of the building to the other? Can you understand how it is to be someone different? And there's a lot of people looking at that kind of area. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. I did AU. They asked me to present there, which was a lot of fun. There's only like 10% that do media, entertainment and games. They make all their money from AutoCAD. It was the most boring engineering conference I've ever been to. But they love putting on a show and spending money where they really shouldn't. And last week we were over with BBC, the Blue Room, so their R&D teams. And this is Terry Hall, the BBC General Director. So we put him in our Bjork thing, and that woman there is being very scared that she gets to keep her kind of R&D team if he liked what they were doing. So she did okay, I think. So why VR? It's growing, booming market. You're all hearing about it. It's everywhere. And people like yourselves are going to be at the absolute core of creating it. It needs a real-time game engine to be done right. Mainly because people are going to sell lots of headsets. There's loads of different ones out there, and everyone with one is going to want to see some content. There's a real problem with people not understanding the difference between the technology hardware and what they see. I asked someone the other day, would you like to see some of our experiences? And they said, no, I've tried Oculus before. So, well, that's kind of like saying you've watched TV before. I've seen an LG before, I don't need to see anything ever again. Well, there's a very, very much difference between the content and the hardware you get, and that hasn't quite happened. People don't understand it. Hopefully, you guys do. A room full of geeks, we should be okay. We're safe here. The only reason I'm wearing a waistcoat is it lets me speak louder. That's the only way. Otherwise, I was turning up in a t-shirt like everybody else. So this is what some people think VR is.
One day you'll be a beautiful butterfly. Well, I'm falling! I mean, I'm not really falling, but it feels like I'm falling. Oh, I think I'm going to throw up. What is that? Thank you. I will treasure this forever. Thank you for letting me into your land. Thank you. All of you. All of you.
I think that's what my mum thinks VR is anyway. And the problem is VR had a really dark past. This really ruined everyone's opinion of it. I remember mid-90s and having a really crap time with an awful bit of hardware strapped to my head and seeing awful graphics with low refresh rates and the rest of it. So we ignored it for a bit because no one wanted to go back there. But we were doing head-mounted display VR stereo stuff for ages and ages and ages. But some people thought that was VR. That's a real thing. It's a projector on the inside into a curved screen. There's no need for it to sit in front of this awful TV, but I love it. Some people have tried to make their own homemade head-mounted displays. But it was these people kind of doing the right sort of stuff. Trying to get head-mounted displays and latency back up. It was mainly this chap, Parmalucky, that kind of kicked it all off. He thought I can get a military-grade tracker and a screen and a bit of optics and I can put something together. And he got a great team around him and they started Oculus. They wanted $250,000. They got $2.5 million, which might have been a big marketing stunt. Can't guarantee it, but it feels a lot like it. Same as Pebble Time, selling all their stuff there. But they just sold for $2 billion a year and a half later without releasing a single real product to anybody. They've done well. As startups go, that's pretty ballsy. Not as much as Instagram and the rest of them, but you know. This is them. We went to Oculus Connect last September. We were up for an award. It was quite good. He did a classic Silicon Valley thing of jumping into the swimming pool at the end of the party and swimming about, as you do on a hotel in LA. It's such a cliche. Some people think this is what VR is, and it's a sign of the times. When it gets to South Park, you know it's coming. I can only show you a bit of it.
You found Carton like this, and you think he's somehow trapped in virtual reality?
I may have done this presentation to some corporate people, so I've had to trim some of it down. But everyone's trying to do this. I want a holodeck. I really do. I've always wanted one. Big geek. That's where it should be. Not one of those, although that's a brilliant outfit. More one of these. Not Riker though. But elite and dangerous. I want to sit in things. I want to go somewhere else. I want to experience something in a really visceral way. And that's where VR is supposed to have gone. But with it, people are inventing new ways of seeing and doing stuff all the time. Someone yesterday said, could you make a VR simulator for skydiving? I said, well, how do you mean? They went, I want to go in one of those inside skydiving things, but I want to feel like I'm flying down on Dubai or the Scottish Highlands or everyone. I went, yeah, that's definitely could do that. And I bet you're probably the first person in the world to think that up. Quick, make a little company, get it online, make you loads of money. It's such a new medium that anyone right now, even in this room, could think up a whole little startup company out one little niche within it because it's so new. The current hardware, the bottom of the end is these Google Cardboards. We have some over there. You basically put your phone in the front and it lets you see it. Power of your phone is the power of what you can see. So VR video is great on it. Unity 3D engine stuff, you're beginning to push the graphics card as hard as you can. There are 3D printed ones. This is an open hardware project. If you have a 3D printer, you can print your own. You just need the lenses. Then there's things like this, which is a foam one. But it starts getting interesting when you get into Gear VR, which is Samsung's own device, but you have to put a Note 4 in it. So it's actually really frickin' expensive. It's about £800 really, when you go, well, I could buy a pretty decent PC and a DK2 for that. but it's good for installations. Then you've got DK2, which has the head-mounted, the tracker that knows where you are. Then you've got Morpheus. I was so lucky. They invited me down today to have a little look at what they're up to, and it's really good. It's really good. They're doing it right. I mean, sadly, it will only work on PlayStation, and no one else will be allowed to play with it until they've released and made as much money as they can. But, you know, at least they're doing it. Then Oculus will release their version sometime, probably this year, we don't know. Then Valve and Vive came out with theirs a couple of weeks ago and stirred the pot even more, which is a pretty good device. All the specs are good, and it's got a very clever laser array that emits basically a big QR code of everything. And it's covered in loads of little cameras that look for that QR code, so it knows where it is in comparison to what it can see the space is, which means it knows where the sofa is or the coffee table is, so I don't trip over and fall down or any of that sort of stuff. It will hopefully warn me not to trip over those things, but it's a pretty cool device. And then these guys, evil Apple, sorry, don't listen. They take my money every year, thousands and thousands of pounds to upgrade to devices that don't only do much more than it did before, but I like it, so I'll spend my money again. But they will be doing something. They hired a head of VR recently, and as they always do, they'll wait till everyone else does something and then bring something else out. So there are two ways of creating VR. There's immersive video, which is this sort of stuff. So this is a 6-camera GoPro rig, shoots in all directions. You then take that video content, stitch it back together into one of these called an equirectangular, and then you can map that back around a sphere in a UV mapping type of way, and then you choose where you look within it. And that's a really good way of capturing reality. A room like this with 70 or 80 odd people in it, we can't make good CG humans yet. We can't do it in films, we can't do it in real time. We get quite close, but it's weird and uncanny and disturbing. So for people and for spaces and behind the scenes, the best seat of the house, or hanging out with Justin Bieber or whatever you want to do.
Why do you look at me when you say
that? Or there's this way, which is much better, and that's where I get really excited. So real-time engine versions, because that gives you stereo cameras, positions, interactivity, virtual reality. You can be somewhere, not just watch a video that seems to be around you, which is what QuickTime VR did in 1996. But they're dressing up as VR now, and there's a lot of people selling it. Bad content's bad content. You make bad VR, it's bad. If you make bad VR with 20 million polygons, you get bad frame rates. But the problem is with VR, because it's stuck to your face, it's not just what you're seeing is a low frame rate, but it's your world is a bad frame rate. Your brain sees disturbing frames. And what that means is that you feel really sick and really like you've taken something you shouldn't have, and are having a bad trip. Not a good trip. So bad content is exacerbated in VR. So hopefully we won't show you any of that, but there's a lot of demos out there. 360 VR, video VR, this is it. This is the height of the current technology. It's literally 6 GoPros duct taped together. Wow, 3D printed rig, same thing. Reason for that is the GoPro is the smallest camera.
Shall I pass this around?
Yeah, pass it around. Please don't.
It did leave me, I'm just going to say that.
We'll find it, we put a tracker in it. But it's a nodal point, so the closer we can get those sensors together, the less blurring you get between the stitches. So that's the sort of thing, that's currently the height of the technology. There are other people making other interesting rigs. There's these people, Jaunt. They're doing a little bit more clever tech on the back end of it, and they keep releasing bits of TV. There's these people, which are, that is pushing $300,000 worth of reds. Let alone the real-time 3D scanner up at the top. I haven't seen anything this thing's made, but it looks awesome. Part of me thinks it's like a rental house is like, oh, we've got a bunch of regs, let's put them together and make it a VR camera. You can think of the weight of this thing.
It looks like a joke, really. It's no shape. Maybe it doesn't.
I don't know.
The price is can't be real.
It's real, they've got photos, but I just don't think it works in the way they want it to. But everyone's trying to work out how to shoot VR in this way, especially movie production companies. Because people want to make films, they think it's a way of selling it. Weil just released, they said it wasn't a marketing stunt, although they released it at Sundance, a small bit of the film that you can only see in VR that tells you about the movie that is then coming out this summer. Oh, how interesting, and all the press people wrote about it. But it was shot specifically as a little bit of a VR vignette. You are in a little bit of the world. but it's not VR. You don't get any positional tracking, you don't get any of the good stuff. The good stuff is what they call presence, what Oculus does anyway. It's how much you feel like you're there. And I can make a cube, well, I can make a white room with a cube in it with one light and an awful shader, and in CG we render it and go, wow, that's a really shit looking bit of CG. You put it in VR, I go, wow, this room's really bright, and why is that so shiny, and oh god. You don't think that it's bad CG, your brain is seeing all the other things, and that's presence. So that's how much you feel like you're there, which is the resolution of the screen that you're looking into, how quickly you turn your head, the latency of that, then whether you can move your position in space, so the translation stuff, and then the power of the graphics card on the back of it that was pushing all that stuff. Then you get to the content. That's the weird thing. The quality of the image you're seeing at the end isn't the thing that makes you feel like you're there any less or more. After that, obviously, it needs to look good, would be helpful. But it gets really interesting. The first time I properly went, wow, that's me, I'm in the holodeck, was back at Oculus Connect, and they showed me their new Crescent Bay stuff, and I went, after my little demo, I went out and I hugged my buddy who was there. He's like, what's that? And I was like, I've actually seen the future. This is what we've been trying to do. I've been working in it for years, but it wasn't good. This is good. And then today, seeing the Morpheus stuff, I went, oh, that's quite good. Someone's got a lot of money behind that. That's quite good as well. But it's immersive storytelling. So games, us, devs, that's where it's going to get really, really fun. Game of Thrones did a little VR version that went out there. DreamWorks are beginning to push their content. They say they're going to make lots and lots and lots of it, because there's lots of people going to want to buy it. But Oculus did a really nice thing. They started a story studio, which is going to produce 5 films this year, which are VR-specific movies, or interactive pieces of content. And they're going to give the files away, open source them, after they've made them, and probably after they've milked it for as much as they can, but to try and push the new medium as fast as it can. First one's this little robot hand that crawls around you. Second one's you're a bullfighter and that sort of thing. But it's pretty cool. So a couple of things we did in VR. Guitar 2022, you get to, like I said, float down on this parachute because they wanted a bit of a wobbly feeling. We took the real Revit files, the CAD files of the stadium, cleaned them up as much as we could, and then you float down across the middle line, Brazil versus Qatar, and then you get the opportunity to take penalty kicks. But this could have been released as a non-Oculus version, as onto anything, because it has Unity at its core. There isn't really anything going on. The Kinect-driven bit is whether you've kicked and when you've kicked, and in fact, this look-away mechanic and the when you press is just standard game 101 of trying to make it. And there was some nice animation. We had 10 days to do it. So the crowd is The Office as little sprites. I think I'm the red guy. There's only 6 of us doing the whole stadium. But it worked. We could get it out as quick as you can. And they were very, very happy. So this was the installation out in Qatar, actually in the engineering, the construction site where they're building it. The first day, they hadn't got the roof put on by the time we turned up. The sun hit this area and began to melt all of the plastic on these things. So we said, we're going to take our kit away until you put a roof on this area. And then also, Kinects don't like bright sunlight at all. Luckily, it all got sorted out in the end. This is the sort of thing. You've also stuff. So, complete opposite end of the same stuff. Bjork, new music video. This is Free Fly, which is like a posh Google Garboard, but it's running off an iPhone 6. And the little pop princess sings and dances around you, and she duplicates throughout the movie. We'd love to show you it. The clever thing, other than it's running in Unity and it's running at a 4K by 4K video texture, which is running stereo in a sort of sphere on an iPhone, it's quite a lot of video to be pushing around. But it's also using very good binaural audio. So we're using a company up in Edinburgh called Two Big Ears. And they're basically doing a 32.1 mix. So not just where she moves, but the best way they explained it was that you're standing in the middle of an orchestra. So the orchestra is all the way around you. And that actually is really, really powerful. The camera doesn't move. There's no gimmicks inside of it. But it's really personal. A couple of people showed you come off almost crying because they're quite into Bjork, but also the fact that it's really calming in a very different way. We showed this to Michael Acton Smith a couple of weeks ago. He was kind of impressed with what it could be done in that direction. I won't show the whole thing, but you get the idea. So it was an installation in New York first with 32 of these things in an area, and then it was rough trade over here as well. But Unity was the core of it, absolutely. Air Race is my biggest and funnest thing. I'm going to flick through it because I'm always over talking what I'm doing. But we built a big stand. It's travelled around the UK, 4 headsets, put it on. We could have made it so you could fly the course. It's really hard to fly these freaking planes. So we actually made it as an on-rails experience. You press go and you get 2 or 3 minutes of flying around. But it was built from real dem data of the area. We then built every asset within it, dropped it into it. We started in Unity 4. We went to Unreal Engine 4 midway through because it came out. And now we're probably going to go back to Unity 5 now. Flip-flop back and forth, back and forth. But it's the principles are all the same. We know that. But they were supposed to use it 4 times. Formula 1, Duxford, Goodwood, a couple others, and they liked it so much they used it every day for 3 months straight. This poor delivery guy was lugging this huge stand around, putting it up in Edinburgh and taking it down and putting it up in London the next day. We sent them a couple of bottles of whiskey to say apologise for it. It wasn't our fault, it was so successful. We're now making every track, and we're actually going to every race throughout the year to take a travelling version of this virtual reality experience. The main reason is because if you, in VR, it's the closest you can get to feeling what it's like to be in one of these planes, because you see it, you feel it, you experience it. And a lot of people get a little wobbly as they're kind of moving around. Your brain plays a lot of tricks on you. So we designed the stand, designed the helmet, mainly so that when people took pictures of themselves looking like wobbly, they got Twitter feeds and Vine, and they helped them sell more cans of Red Bull. This was our test, which was only a year ago. Super simple little Unity scene. Water and pylons, and they loved it. They approved it from that point onwards. They sent me to Croatia. This is Tom, very quiet pilot, very nice. Not excited about anything. So when I said, where are we going? He said, come to the airport. This is how we're going to fly. And that's literally how they planned the course, which I thought was hilarious. And then this is me in a plane, and this is me upside down in a plane. Very, very excited. Tom had said, do you want a sick bag? And I was like, no. He said, well, if you throw up, you have to clean the plane. I'll hold on to it, just in case. But they pushed me, I was mouthing off a lot, so they pushed me up to 7.5, 8G, which is quite a lot. 7 was fine. 8, he had to remind me to wake up. So 8 was me blacking out. And we have got this GoPro footage of me just kind of slumping into the chair. But it gave us good insight. Vegas was fun. We took it all the way over there. This guy absolutely loves it. He was a real pilot as well, actually. You get the idea. Hopefully you get to have a go. But we did our little stand. Americans did this with a plane and a pop-up van, and it's humongous. They always do things bigger. But once we were there, we just flippantly asked Palmer Lucky if he wanted to come out and have a go in a plane. He said, yeah, sure. Oh, okay. So he turned up on Friday morning wearing pyjamas and flip-flops, because that's what you do when you've got $2 billion. You do whatever you want. Flew him around in the plane. We hung out for the afternoon. He's an incredibly positive, energetic young guy who's just trying to do something cool. He's got a great company around him, and Facebook's been basically really supportive and just let them do it right. He did basically buy a jet on a whim, the same way I'd buy a cappuccino. I was like, yeah, that's pretty interesting. How much is it? And the guy was like, oh, well, I'm not really sure. He said, I'm Palmer Lucky, just been bought by Facebook. Oh, come this way. As they went around. So the whole thing, we built the whole thing in Max. Lots of assets, popped it into Unity to start with, then over to UE. You've all seen this stuff before. Trees are a pain, because there's lots of them. They take a lot of hit on CPU. Built all the in-game assets. Built the inside of the plane, not the outside, because you can't see it for most of the time. And then UE being UE, you can do weather and stuff like that super, super simply. But it's exactly the same premise. If you haven't tried UE, it's very, very similar to Unity. My devs flip-flop back between them. They usually try and convince me to stay in Unity because they're much more happy there, but I always push them over here because I know the lighting's a little bit better right now until we get it right. Future, probably be a game, if we're lucky, because all the hard work's done. And then it's all over the place. So finally, just wrapping up, moving on, brave new world. VFX is where visual effects, so virtual effects, and you'll hear this term of VRX artists pretty soon. So virtual effects artist, which is basically a 3D artist with game dev and real-time knowledge. So where the blending is of modelers and you guys. And I'm trying to hire them now, but I have to explain what a VRX artist is. So I'm saying games artist with developer knowledge. But there'll be things like this, like a VR arcade. So instead of laser tag, we'll go somewhere, put a headset on, run around, shoot each other, or ride My Little Pony, or whatever else you're into. I wasn't looking at you again. Yeah. There'll be these things, like there's an Omni treadmill, you get to run around. But personally, when I play games, I get just sweaty standing here. I don't want to run around anywhere. So some people will be really into it, others won't. There'll be force feedback weapons, there'll be force feedback jackets. There's one right now which not only has a rumble strip in it, but has a whole sensor array of solenoids, which when you get hit so hard you get bruised. So a bullet wound is really a bullet wound. Personally, that's not where I want to take my VR, but other people are really into it, including this guy. And then there'll be relaxation and meditation and all this sort of stuff. So sit in first class, put a headset on, be somewhere else. Don't get scared about flying or anything else like that. What's more interesting, and where you guys are even more useful, is AR. So VR's having its moment, but AR's about to get even bigger. More sales, they're saying, is going to be huge. As soon as HoloLens came out. But you all must have seen the HoloLens. This is probably pure promo, but I'm hoping it's not. Connect scanners going out so it knows where the universe is, then you can drop anything back into it. Where Google Glass was awful, this thing has an opportunity not to be awful, which for me was quite exciting, but it's still a 3D universe with some sort of interactivity. Is it a game? Is it knowledge? Is it pulling in your Google Analytics and laying it next to you? But there's going to be an interesting thing where half the office here may be wearing HoloLens during the day to work and half won't be. And the people that have a HoloLens on have an advantage. We have access to the internet at all times. All those worries we had about Google Glass are going to come back to the surface. But it only works if there's good apps, good games, good dev. So you guys should really look at it. And then Magic Leap. They got $300 million from Google, $200 million from someone else, and all they had was to tell everybody else in the world is some hands which open and show an elephant. It's obviously doing something, right? And everyone, it's like everyone knows someone else who knew someone that works at Magic Leap or has seen it. I haven't. I'm really into this stuff. I'm all over the place. I've never seen one. So hopefully it's a real product that's going to come out. You can imagine it's going to be a HoloLens thing. Where to release this? It was supposed to be part of a TED Talk. Just trying to show what it is. I'm not convinced. I mean, I want it to do that. I really, really want it to do that. But it's wetter. We know what they do. They're a visual effects house. But you can imagine where they're trying to take this sort of stuff. And the ability to VR is such an insular experience. AR can add to our university. They can see it being bigger. I also Magic Leap did this. They did their patents. And their patents, all these pictures here, are very, very similar to things like Minority Report and someone else's artwork, student film. And you can't put something on the internet. We love finding people out and telling everybody else about it. So a bit naughty. Final thing, VR for Empathy for Good. I'm really trying to find people that want to create stuff to do something which isn't my... Basically, I help people sell things to people that don't want it yet. You know, it's marketing. It's not really that an honourable thing to do. Whereas what you can do is do something a bit different. And I didn't. The reason I got into trying to look at this and the ideas of disability and everything else was this little test project of being able to meander around London, which is a Rift thing. And it's also on iOS and Android and works with Google Cardboard. Lets you explore London, which is really nice.